Welcome to the Beacon of Light podcast. My name is Sarah Kappos, hosting with Tony Poole, and we are here speaking with Emilie Davis, who is a nutritionist at Beecon Recovery, and we are thrilled to have you here in Harvey the Bus. How do you like it?
This is quite the experience.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Tony, how are you doing?
Never better.
Good. Wonderful. Well, we're just going to chat a little bit about the role of nutrition in recovery, what we have all experienced, what we have learned, and why it is so vital for you to be at Beecon. And it's a fairly new, Tony and I have spoken a little bit about this. It's a fairly new area of interest for people in recovery to really focus on nutrition. And Tony has a little story he wants to tell about how he came to realize that. Tony, do you want to tell us
your
cheese puff story?
The cheese puff story. Well, the thing is, let me just back up for a sec.
Sure.
The nutritional piece isn't a new thing in the residential end of things. That's been a thing for a minute. For me, the nutritional piece is new in the outpatient realm, right? Now, the cheese puff story, when I realized how, important nutrition is. We've heard these, you are what you eat stories, right? Okay, so here we go. See, my mouth started my mouth is watering like I just ate a lemon. Oh my God. Okay, so it's, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm hungry. I haven't eaten all day. And no, I was not intermittent fasting. I just hadn't eaten. And there was a bag of cheese puffs sitting over there. And it had been eyeing me since, 12 or 1. And this was not one of those small bags. It was a pretty good sized bag, and it was the good stuff, wasn't the off brand. So finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Right around 4:30-ish, I laid into that bag. And it was yummy, right? For the first 10, 12-ish minutes. And I'm going after it too, scraping the junk off your fingers, right, with your lower teeth. Yeah. And then I started feeling something, and it wasn't groovy for me, but I kept on shoving them in, right? And then maybe about a quarter of the way, it was a family size bag. You're gonna do it right. I started thinking, don't, and I kept, and then finally I did stop, right? And I was done. I felt like shit the rest of the day. It was horrible. And it's one of those deals, like, you just got to hold on. You just got to, go through it. And then I realized, wow, that's true. My gut, what's happening, what I just put down my palate is affecting here, my entire everything. I felt like crap for a long time. And no drinking Pepto-Bismol is going to help. You just got to hang on. And so that's when I realized, and that's of course why you have been brought on at Beecon Recovery. If I understand correctly, right, and I do, you have a master's in nutrition. And so everything I just shared, you're shaking your head like, yep, you get it. I want you to speak to that and talk about the highway between the gut and the brain, and how that affects, how what we eat directly affects us. We were talking before the podcast about how much sugar is in a can of Coca-Cola or Pepsi or any of that other nonsense, right? And we were talking about what sugar is responsible for, the diseases, and how it affects us, and how addictive it is. And that's why, we brought you on at Beecon, which is also why we're having you discuss with us from a nutritionist perspective.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you're correct. I have a master's degree in nutrition, and I mean, it's nutrition. I don't think I'm biased. It's the foundation of our health and affects literally everything. And there is, as you talk about the cheese puff story and how you felt, both like mentally and physically, it's because there's a literal physical connection between the gut and the brain. And so people who are kind of those type A personalities or might struggle with like anxiety or depression, etc., have a it's not that that connection is any stronger per se, but it's just that maybe they're a little bit more sensitive. And so really paying attention to what they put in in their body, how well their gut is working or not is going to affect that. Uh, we produce serotonin in our gut. We produce immune cells in our gut. And so again, how well it's working or not, and that just goes back to the food we're eating, the stress we're under, other toxins and poisons and different things we're exposed to. So that's where some of the, the drugs and the alcohol come in, the recovery piece specifically. But that is why. That is why it's so important to pay attention to what you're eating, because that will affect how well you're thinking, how well you're making decisions, your mood, blood sugar regulation. I mean, it's all connected. So if we can get people to make better choices and help them regulate their blood sugar, which helps stabilize their mood, which helps them make better decisions, and that's a win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seems so simple.
Which is what we're doing right now.
Anyway, so simple baby steps. Beginning recovery is a lot. There are many pieces to consider. There's the spiritual, the emotional, the financial, the legal, all of these things. And so while there is a wealth of information about nutrition and what it can do for us, with someone who is in early recovery, we talked about baby steps. Can you say a little bit about what you have learned? Because this is a relatively new field for you, working with nutrition and people in recovery.
Well, it's not necessarily new because you were at a different facility that was
It was-
residential, but I think it's
yeah.
new for the outpatient realm,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep. Correct. I worked at a residential program for 3 years. So curated all of their menus, right? And taught nutrition and educated and counseled a little bit, et cetera. Yeah. So just kind of a different environment. This is the first outpatient, like exclusive outpatient.
So there's a lot more autonomy with their choices.
There is.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was in the residential, for better, for worse. I had control over what they were eating.
Right.
And I could control that. I could manage it. So the good part about that is that after eating, we had like an 80-20 plant-based menu. So limited amounts of meat. We didn't have gluten. We didn't have dairy. There was no processed sugar, no sugar outside of what we find in fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And it was amazing the kind of results that we saw in 30 days.
That environment, though, it's a controlled environment. You and I were just talking about this subject. We'll bring it up again. People that are bringing things into the facility, into Beacon, right? That I don't even dig at all. You know, and so it's been my challenge, even before you came on board, i- to get these people to recognize the importance of of their foods. And a lot of this stuff is fast food. And
Yeah.
to me, the only thing about fast food is correct is fast, right?
Correct.
There's not a whole lot of nutritional aspects of what you get fast food wise. And it's been a chore. It's been a chore to, which of course is another reason why you're here at Beacon, is to help me help them recognize what they're putting down their pie holes, right?
Yeah, it's a different kind of challenge to solve, I would say, right? And
is.
kind of going back to the baby steps, it's no matter who I'm working with, my approach is that I like it to come from them what they're willing to work on. And so I can think off the top of my head as I've been meeting with clients. Some of them recognize that they're drinking too many energy drinks, for example. And one client's goal is just to alternate every time that he would have, and I can't remember what brand it is, but so the second Red Bull, instead of a Red Bull, it's going to be water. That's his goal.
That sounds like a drinking trick where it's like for every I don't know, third or fourth shot, you take drink a glass of water. I mean, it's a place to start.
It's a place to start. Yes. Right. And so if that's where he's willing to start, great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, that's great. It's great that we're having this conversation and these guys and gals are recognizing these things. But to me, that's for me, the challenge. Where's the accountability? Where's the implementation of this? Right. Which is why we brought the epigenetics in, or maybe even the live blood cell analysis piece, which is and this is where I'm going with these folks. And that is, give me 30 days from a nutritional perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you can answer this, but I'm pretty sure I already know. If I can get somebody that's used to, eating the donuts and drinking the sodas and all the other crap, is get them to make that change and really, really do it. Look at the labels of what you're buying from the store, right? Don't go for those weird words that you don't know, that is just a fancy word for not good for you, right? But really make this choice. Give me it's just 30 days, right? And let's see how you feel at the end of those 30 days. And make that recognition of, wow, you know what? I really feel better. And if that can happen, then it might stick. Agreed?
Agreed. Yeah, same concept with my private clients. When I can get someone...
You work someplace other than Beecon Recovery?
When I can get someone to recognize that the changes they're making, right, like food affects how they feel.
Yeah.
Then I typically, I've got them.
When they can say, you know what? Yeah, I notice.
Yep. So different problems, challenges, whatever, right, with my other private clients, but same concept. I can get them to feel it and know that really there's a difference in how I feel with the food I eat. Then I do. I think that's more motivating for people.
How does money play into that for these people?
In recovery. Yeah.
It's not cheap to eat healthy. It's cheap to eat poorly.
It's
true.
It's a good question. And I challenge this when I teach at a local university, and I challenge this when this comes up with my students, because I definitely think that perception is out there.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Yeah. The kinds of foods that I'm recommending everybody eat, like you can find them anywhere.
Mm.
I don't shop at Whole Foods. You don't need to shop at Whole Foods, right? So what I'm talking about are their basics: fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds.
When you talk about fruits, though, orange juice is riddled with sugar.
Yeah, we don't recommend orange juice.
But berries, obviously, yay.
Yeah.
Right? Good fats.
Well, and even a whole orange is different than orange juice.
Yep. So I don't recommend juice.
Yeah.
Eat an orange. Eat an apple.
Well, juice you've squeezed from an orange. But, Sarah, you brought up the financial aspect. But for me, the biggest chore isn't so much the financial, because that's easier to overcome than the time. Because when you're going to go to the grocery store, you're going to buy those foods.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And time, that's why I say money in general, because time is money.
Yeah.
And people whose time does not belong to them, or very little of their time belongs to them, then they will reach for the fast food, like you said, because they are on their way to their construction job and they stop at Maverick and they get
it's just easier.
Whatever those things are that are in the rolling heat up machines that I've never eaten Yeah.
meat of some kind,
Meat stick.
processed meat of some
Processed meat
kind.
stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing about those kinds of foods too, I don't eat them, but someone can help me. Like they are expensive. I
Time.
mean, I hear people, yeah, so it's either time or money. And I hear you, right? Like if someone has money, then they're buying maybe services or foods that more convenient. So what an example of that is like you go to the produce section, someone's already cut up the broccoli for you. Well, that costs 3 times as much as walking down the aisle, purchasing a broccoli stalk and cutting it yourself. I mean, literally, right? Like 3, 4 times the amount. So time and money, those definitely are the like 2 main, what's the word? Um,
Caveats.
yeah, but again, I think if someone's health is important to them, I mean, we got to start somewhere, and there are definitely tips and tricks and things that people can do, prepping food ahead of
Yeah.
time, and those kinds of basic foods that I mentioned a minute ago. You find those at Winco, you find them at Smith's, you find that we're here in Utah, right? So these are local grocers, but those things are not expensive.
Well, you brought up also the early recovery individuals.
Yeah.
What I have found is the people that are in early recovery, you and I think have talked about this, it's everything they could do to get over their drug addiction. And so I think what we had discussed, we did discuss this, was for you to focus more on the folks that aren't necessarily in early recovery, but are maybe if they've reached that plateau of now I've gotten where I've got a hold of this, I've not done whatever my drug of choice is, regardless of what that drug is, but I'm now chugging along. I'm kind of hitting on all 8 cylinders in reference to my recovery. Now they don't
Yeah.
have to worry about, that draw, and they can start focusing more on, okay, now let's take a look at this aspect of your recovery, which of course is the nutritional piece. Does that sound about right?
I think so. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I agree.
That's been your experience with
It's
the
been
folks?
my experience, yeah, and I mean, for the record, I'm what people in recovery call a normie. So I'll throw that out there. That I don't have any experience with recovery personally or even consuming drugs or alcohol. I'm a normie, but in my experiences and all the people that I've met, my observation is, I mean, especially in those 30 days, maybe 60, maybe even in the first close to year, we're focused on those of you that are familiar with like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So like it might literally be just food access. And so I am very cognizant and conscious of people being in that place. Food is good. Um, Even if it's, not what we would want, but right, like working on the things that need to be worked on in that moment and building on once you have secured housing and once you have food access and right. I mean, the basics we need the basics before we can.
I think as I'm listening to you talk, we um, get to come up with some sort of other than it's going to make you feel better incentive. I got to come up with something, some kind of, and I'll figure it out. Right? I will figure it out. I'll talk to the rest of the staff. What can we do to entice these people to lean into this process? Right?
Well, I think you, Emilie, made a statement that was a surprise and a challenge to me, which was I said, it's cheaper to eat food that's low in
Quality.
nutritional value and high quality nutritional food. And you're saying, no, that is a myth, actually. It's actually a myth that it costs more money to eat food that your body is going to benefit more from. I like to steer away from words that like put like a moral judgment on food because I
For sure.
have a history of disordered eating myself. And so when food gets moralized as good or bad, I don't find that that's very helpful, and it's not very true. So I like to speak about, like, I like to use the right words to describe what we're going for here, which is a body that can do what it needs to do, that has like steady burning fuel, a body that has like clarity and focus, um and ultimately that is a body that you care about. And so I think it's wonderful. I think you breaking down those, like being present at Beecon and breaking down those myths and challenging those beliefs is wonderful. Your very presence shows that nutrition is important and that it's achievable, because otherwise you would not even be there. So already just your presence is wonderful because it makes that accessible to people who I know. I've been in the community for almost 20 years. I know that they are not accustomed to uh, loving their bodies or listening to their bodies or taking care of their bodies. They are accustomed to um, ignoring, punishing, and kind of thinking of the body as something that has to be beaten into some sort of state of submission, or like, for example, somebody who's going to smoke meth for 3 days and not sleep. Like they are trying to like force as much from their body as they possibly can using these substances. And so I think that it's so important to recognize where they're coming from, that paradigm that they're coming from, and to plant seeds, even just so that they can start to learn a different relationship to the body. Because to somebody who has never been at war with their body, it's like, well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you give your body foods that are going to sustain it in a good way? And there are reasons why you wouldn't. Like, have you encountered much of that? And how do you deal with that?
Personally or with the clients?
Either one. Either one, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, it's great points. Many of them. And just to kind of clarify, I feel the same way about, it's important to me to use, I know that there's quote unquote the right word, but the way that I talk about food with my students in the classroom, with my private clients, with the Beecon clients, there is no such thing as good and bad. Like you won't hear me use those words. Yeah. Cause I don't, there's no such thing. I don't think it does people any good to think about food in those ways. I talk about food. There's foods that we eat all the time. And so those are the foods that, you mentioned, they're fueling our body in the right way and preventing disease and giving us the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we need. And then there's foods we eat sometimes. And then there's foods we don't eat very often. That's kind of how I talk about food and teaching people like what foods go where and why. And so I do, right? Like to your point, I do. I think it matters how we talk about food. And in my experience, I worked with, within nutrition, so many different things. I'm a gut health specialist. And so there's that piece. I've worked with people with disordered eating and or eating disorders. It's not my specialty, but it's just part of food. And so I encounter it a lot. And then I think within the recovery community, there was a lot to learn there too. Years ago, when I first started working at the residential facility, I'd never really seen clients, people thinking about and using food in the way that they do, as sort of a step down from their drug of choice. I mean, that was just kind of eye-opening to me. Um, many other things I think I've learned, in my time in recovery. But personally, to answer your question, um, I've never really experienced that.
Mm.
Um, very limited, I guess I would say. Um, but so just having that awareness, I think when I work with the clients, again, it's coming back to kind of baby steps. It's coming back of like having my presence there. And I think that speaks volumes to, right, what you're trying to do, Tony. There are not many recovery centers, inpatient or out, that employ a nutritionist.
No, and
I,
that's unfortunate.
it's
But as we're having this conversation, I'm visualizing myself, my personal life. I'm a busy guy, but I'm no, more busy than the folks that are in Beecon Recovery in reference to people that are looking to get past their addictions. But as we go through this process, it's a lot easier for me, you, and everybody on this planet to go through a drive-through at Taco Bell and get them to give us food versus me going to the grocery store and taking the time to find different. I mean, like last night, I'm preparing my meal. Now, when I prepare my meal, I'm just a guy in my place by myself, but I make a lot of food. And then I will take that food and I'll segregate it, put some of it in the freezer and put some of it in the refrigerator. But the mushrooms, I had to clean the mushrooms, right? My red potatoes, sometimes I peel them, sometimes I don't, but I have to chop them up. I have to prepare the onions and the asparagus. Whatever I'm going to do takes time. It's so much easier for me with reference to time to not do all that, right? But I agree with you. It's cheaper doing it this way, but it takes so much time. And we're just so busy, right? Whether I'm busy, opening a second facility, or whether you're busy, whoever you are, one of our patients works at Burger King. He's on foot. He doesn't have time to be doing these things. And therein lies for me the challenge with these folks in this community. And I've got to get creative um, to give them some sort of incentive other than it's going to make you feel better, because I don't think that's enough incentive. I mean, I might be wrong, but I just don't think that that's enough for them.
So one thought that came to my mind as you were talking, Tony, as I was listening to you was, so for me, the gratifying thing about this podcast is I believe in the human fabric, which means that we are each a thread, and woven together, we can cover more and do more than we could alone as one thread. One thread is one thread. And so I wonder if because the strength of recovery community is the community piece. And I believe that we are learning more and more just how important that is, the community for recovery, but not even just for recovery, I think for anyone. The issue of time is that it's all on my shoulders. So what I can envision or understand is to maybe give the gift to these people who believe that it's all on their shoulders, and they have to pay their child support, and they have to make it to court, and they have to go to their job, and they have to get U8, and they have to go to group, and they have to and under the weight of all of that responsibility that naturally often comes when somebody's trying to rebuild their life, and you have to cook, and so I wonder if there might be some more community-based way to do meal prep where it's not all on your shoulders, and it's actually like a shared effort, so that it's because it literally is too much. I've been in a place in my life where it literally all I could do was stay sober and take care of the bare minimum. And my daughter was 2 years old when I got sober, and I didn't have a car, and I rode my bike, and I had this little pink, I still have the little pink 10-speed that I used to ride to the bar. And then after that, I rode it to my groups, and it had the little chariot in the back, you know, that you put the little kid in. And I put my little 2-year-old daughter in there, and we rode around, and I literally didn't have the bandwidth to think about this kind of stuff. And I hated myself. I hated my body. I hated the history that was stored in it. I hated the things that it had done, and I felt really at war with it. And so I was just, no way was I gonna, I wasn't ready to even begin to address what she might need.
Which I think speaks to what we had talked about with early recovery, somebody that just got out of jail or somebody that's like, okay, you know what, I'm going to do it this time. Right?
Mhm.
That person versus the person that's already got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months of,
Oh, I think a year. I think you're
A
more,
year.
yeah. I really do think that it's a year before a lot of people can go there. You can plant the seeds,
You can plant the
and
seeds,
like your presence is so important, and the teaching that you're doing is so important, and the example and all of that.
I think as I was talking, as we've been talking, I had an idea that came to me.
I thought that might happen.
Well, you know what though? You ever heard somebody say, "I got a good idea"? It's not your idea if it's good. So I had an idea,
Okay,
right? An
let's hear it.
idea came to me, right? I do make healthy food, and it's, well, stinking yummy. I'm not trying to brag, but it really is, right? My mouth is watering thinking about it. I'm gonna make a big old thing of something. I'll smoke a brisket, right? And then I'll make some food that goes with the brisket. And yours truly, I'm gonna do this next week. I got a big old brisket I got at Costco. That's where I do my hunting and fishing, is at Costco. Right. I mean, a lot of guys go out and hunt stuff out there. I just go to Costco, let them do it for me. But I'm gonna go get a brisket out of my freezer. I'm gonna smoke the living 18-hour smoker on that thing, right? I'm getting hungry and I'm not even hungry. But I'm gonna make some good food that's good for us, and I'm gonna bring it in. Right?
Yeah,
And
and then maybe it would become contagious, and other people would do it.
and
You
that's
could
what I'm
say,
saying.
You got to change the
That,
culture.
and it
Yes.
starts from the top.
Yeah.
like,
And
here's
that's-
the opportunity
yeah.
to give
Yeah.
your fellows, like,
That's
what's
exactly right.
the very best thing you could think of to give them? Give them that.
A brisket.
There you go. That's what you would give. I would give, whatever I would give, and you would
Chicken
give whatever
soup.
you would
Yeah.
give. I got a huge pot of chicken soup. I'm going to give you some to
So
go when you
good.
leave.
So good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Wait, you're gonna give us some to
Well,
go.
she has to go. We have to wrap up this podcast because she's got to get to her next thing. She's a busy lady.
Wait a minute. When she leaves, I'm gonna leave. Hello. What am I?
You're not
chopped
going to
liver?
hang out and eat soup with me?
Oh yeah.
You better.
Okay. But nonetheless, that's what I'm gonna do. I think. Matter of fact,
Love
I
it.
know. And I'll show them 2 things. One, this is really good food for you, but I love you enough to show you the way. Watch. No, we have 2 sober livings, about to open a third,
Mm.
right? Women live in one, men live in the other. You know this.
Mhm.
I'm going to go to either one. I'm going to bring my smoker to there, and I'm going to take it the night before. I'm going to show whoever there how do you prepare it, using like mustard as a bind to put your rub on. It's going to be so good, right? But show them how to prepare the brisket, get all the stuff, and then we'll go, like, say, on a Friday night, and I'll start smoking it on a Friday night, and then I'm going to come back on a Saturday, and we're going to show them how I prepared the meal, and then we're all going to eat it together.
That's a wonderful idea. And what I want to add to that is you will be showing them skills, like Emilie discussed, and you will also be showing them love.
Love.
And
I love you.
And I can feel that in my heart when I say it.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who have taught
Yeah.
me about food, my daughter being one of them, teaching people to love food, and that love does go into the preparation of the food, and that
See,
does matter.
It's going to be so much fun.
Mhm.
They're
Right.
going to love it.
They're going to, well, almost as much as I'm going to love it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, because that's why I did this. That's why Beacon Recovery even exists. These people that we're referring to, They're on Medicaid. They're in and out of jail. They got tattoos all over the place. These are people that nobody care about, but they're still people. He cares about them, and of course, so do I. And I can't wait. It's gonna be so much fun. I'm gonna go set this up this afternoon. Um, yeah, it's gonna be a fun gig to be able to show these people love, but also show them, here's what I did for this. Oh my gosh, this just keeps getting better. No, 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 wait. We're gonna be able to go to the store together. Okay, everybody.
It's what I used to
We're
do.
gonna
Yeah.
all go to the
Again, like,
store. You're
yeah,
gonna help me buy all this stuff.
once a month we would do a grocery store tour.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That's
I
a great
mean,
idea.
it was great
Yeah.
in theory. But
Planting
yes, right?
seeds.
Like
You're planting
all of these
seeds. Yeah.
skills and all of this education.
Yeah.
And I don't know, to go back, Tony, to what you just said though, like I'm here because I care. I absolutely care, but I'm here because you care. Again, like there are just not many recovery centers out there that employ a nutritionist. And I know that.
Mhm.
I know that.
Because you're a nutritionist. You would know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I
yeah.
know about and I hear about, the experiences of all kinds of people in recovery. And the food is in that category of this is food we don't eat very often.
Yeah. Well, these people, they're my people. This is my tribe because, well, I'm them. I'm in recovery. Right? I know exactly what it's like, not to the extent of, heroin or fentanyl, because I never, that those things always, I did never do those, but I did have my bats with, alcohol for sure, cocaine, uh, whatever was in that needle that I started an IV on and put somebody out when I was doing assisting the doc with, as a medic in the Army. I was assisting those docs doing, endoscopies.
Sorry.
You can edit that.
She had to cough.
She had to cough.
But, as I start an IV with whatever drug the doctor ordered, this is a true story, right? I would inject this in their IV. Then I would take that needle and I would go put it on top of the sharps, right? That was hanging on the wall. Back then they were a little different than they are now. All you had to do is drop it in, but you couldn't get in there afterwards. But I would put it on top. Then the entire day, I'm thinking, man, I might take this back to the barracks and we're gonna have some fun. And I would. But
those stories are so scary to me.
well,
Yeah.
talk about scary. Here's the scary. Boy wonder, I didn't even think I was a medic. Should have known better, right? I would inject this into an IV that was diluted in, whatever normal saline or lactate or whatever it was, but dipshit was putting this shit directly in my vein. What?
Not listening to the body, maybe.
I mean, I was like you, whoever you are in my facility, running
Sure, yeah.
from or to whatever it was. So I
Right.
get it.
Right.
Because the entire day, when we set up prep for whoever was going to be in there and whatever drugs I was going to be pushing through, I'm like, oh, and I don't remember what those drugs were, but this is the one that I like. Okay, good. And I would be excited. That's all I would think. I'm functioning, I'm talking, doing my job, doing it very well, right? But I'm always thinking, when I get back to the barracks, right? I'm going to go do that, right? Until one day I felt it was a funny taste. It scared me. That was the last day for that. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's scary to me.
this is why these people, they're me. And they are, in fact, human beings, right? And at the end of the day, we all share the same God. He loves us all and he wants us all to be happy. One of our staff members, Devon, right? He started doing drugs when he was, I think, 6 or 7, graduated to heroin at, I don't know, 10, 11, or 12. Now works for Beecon Recovery, went through our program. But he coined a phrase that when we are stuck in our addictions, we are soulless. That's why people that are stuck in their addictions, their eyes are dark because they have no light or very little of it, right? And so the objective at Beecon Recovery is to teach people how to stay stopped and give them their life. And Sarah, self-love, right?
Mhm.
So
Wonderful.
It's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for shining some light on nutrition and for being with us in Harvey. It's been wonderful talking with you. I wish we
I love
had
that.
a whole another hour. I'm sure we could go so many different directions.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I agree.
yes.
Thank you, Emilie.
Thank you for your
Thank
expertise.
you.
Thanks for coming here, and thank you for agreeing to come work with us at Beecon.
You're so welcome. Yeah.
All right, let's
Really
go get
happy to be here.
Yeah, let's go
Chicken
get some
soup,
chicken
baby.
soup.